Hey, welcome to another video. I'm currently watching the under 18, so the National Bowling Championships, National Youth Bowling Championships 2021 for Singapore, and we are watching the under 18 boys masters as well as the under 18 girls masters. And I believe the masters will decide who gets to the step ladder, and there'll be a step ladder event going on later as well. So, okay. So, as usual, as per my previous videos, we'll just take a look at the guys and we'll analyze them. So, first one, let's take a look at. Let's bring out my marker. So we have a two-hander here, Peter Cauldron, who is doing really well. Like he is on 5, 6, 7 strikes in a row. Okay, so he's doing really well. I think he's the second qualifier as well, if I remember, based on the score sheet. So he qualified well, and he goes into the finals, masters, and he's on a hot streak, right? On the route to a perfect game. So let's take a look at his game. So even though he's doing so well, there are still plenty of areas where I feel Peter can even get even better. So first and foremost, let's look at his game here, right? Slightly earlier timing. So looks like he may be from NSRCC because we have a few of the coaches from NSRCC back there supporting him. Either that or watching his line, I'm not super sure. Probably it's from NSRCC, in my opinion. So let's see. He has early timing. Wait, 1, 2. Yeah, he does have early timing. So the moment that he moves his ball, right? The moment he moves his ball, he's moving the ball at the beginning of his second step. So let's illustrate here, right? So Peter is moving his second step here, and you can see that he's already moving his ball. So let's play a little bit. Yep. So you can see in the midst of starting his second step, he's really moving his ball. So that is what we call early ball placement timing. So in order to counter this early ball placement timing, right, Peter actually slows down his swing. Like his swing looks a little bit stiff and not very smooth, right? That's because since he has early timing, Peter has to slow down his swing in order for his feet to catch up. So what he does is he actually slows it down in the downswing. So if we take a look at his downswing, yep, it seems to be very slow, right? Let's take a look again. Like his downswing seems to be slow. Naturally, if your downswing is pretty smooth, most of the time the downswing would flow down a little bit faster. So Peter actually subconsciously slows down his downswing in order to make up to accommodate for his early ball placement timing. So that, and also the fact that Peter has to place his ball rather high in order to accommodate for the early timing. So he's holding his ball pretty high up because he has to make the swing go a little bit higher in order for the swing to take a little bit more time. So his swing will go through here, right? He places it even higher up and it goes through here. So he has to not only slow down his downswing, he also has to place his swing higher. So he places the ball higher, lets it take longer time to swing downwards so that the swing takes more time in order to match the timing of his feet. So there are a few accommodation factors that Peter is doing in order to accommodate the early timing. So his downswing is a little bit stiff, but what Peter does well, I feel, is on his downswing, right? He actually relaxes and fully extends his arm and straightens his elbow, which is here. So this is something that Peter does very good, which I have not seen many two-handers do it, especially the two-handers which are newer to the game. So a lot of them, they actually don't do this, which actually hurts their game. So Peter actually has he has this part of his game which is really good. Let me highlight in blue. So you can see this a little bit blurred here, but Peter actually straightens his elbow on the downswing, straightens his elbow, and he straightens his entire arm before accelerating and pushing the ball outwards. So you can see that his arm is totally straight. So even though earlier, if we were to reverse, right, when Peter is doing the downswing, his elbow was bent. So you can see here, when Peter is doing the downswing, right, let's highlight here, elbow is bent. But as he goes up into the top of the swing, and as he goes into the downswing, he actually straightens. He actually straightens his elbow and straightens his arm as well. So you can see here as he goes into the release. Okay, this is a good thing, so I like to highlight in blue. So he straightens his elbow, straightens his arm. So that helps him to be able to generate a little bit more ball speed on the downswing. Because the longer your arm swing, the more you can generate ball speed. It's the same formula, right? Which is radial. If you have a larger radius, that means if you have a circular rotation, right? If you have a larger radius in your circular rotation, you can convert it into a faster linear velocity. So that's one of the physics formulas there. So that is something that Peter does really well. Let's look at his finishing position. Let's see. Let's clear that. Let's finishing position. Okay, so he kicks up a little bit. Not ideal. So what he does here is not ideal because he has this popping up motion. You can see that his head actually goes low and pops up. So he has this violent popping up motion, which does help him to generate a little bit more ref rate, but it doesn't help in his consistency, right? So his head actually goes up and down. It bobs up and down. Because when he goes into the last part of his slide, in his power step, he goes low and then he has to pop up. So this popping motion doesn't help his targeting, and his still seems decently balanced, but it doesn't help his targeting. Because when he is high up, he's looking at the target this way. When he is lower, he's looking at the target from this angle. So not really advisable, but certain things that he does here, which is reasonable, is his trailing leg. His trailing leg is good, extended well to the left. He kicks it out because he has to generate a lot of, he does a violent motion here. So his arm swing goes through here and he does this violent upwards follow through here. Because there's so much going on the right side of his body, he has to kick up his trailing leg in order to counterbalance the amount of force that's going through on the right side of the body. So how about his balance arm? Okay, so as he releases, his balance arm is decently positioned. Yep, decently positioned. Then obviously as he releases, because he's a two-hander, he uses both his arms to try and swing upwards, right? That's in a violent motion. His arms wasn't in that ideal position during release. But other good things about his game is that he has excellent knee bend. Okay, his front knee, excellent knee bend, and then the back trailing leg, well positioned. And he has this very good angle between his trailing leg and his sliding knee. At least about 45 to 50 degrees, right, of angle. So he's still well positioned in the finishing position. And currently everything is working out, right? He is striking a lot. So that's Peter's game. So currently he may be the leader here, I'm not too sure. Based on how many strikes he's throwing, seems like he had a baby split and he manages to spare it. So Peter's doing really well. So even though, like I mentioned before, even though the physical game of a player might not be ideal, right? They might still have certain areas to improve. It doesn't mean that they are bad bowler, because they can still be a good bowler, they can still score well. But just that if you don't have a great physical game, later on if you meet more challenging opponents or more challenging lane conditions, when you come under pressure, then or there might be the time where the game breaks down, or there might be times where you are required to play several different angles in competitive situations, but your physical game is not up to the task and doesn't allow you to play the other differing angles. But so Peter still has room to improve in his physical game, but still doing extremely well, right? Hope he wins the tournament. Okay, let's take a look at the other bowlers. Okay, we have a bowler from Sports School on the right. Okay, so an interesting bowler on the left, which I believe that should be... Is it Heng Kang? Heng Kang, I don't know his full name. Okay, so we have this bowler in grey on the right. Sorry, on the left here. So let's look at bowler on the left here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So his timing wise, I think his timing is decent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep. So his timing is decent. He is walking his first 2 steps and then placing the ball around the end of the second step. So ball placement timing is good. However, what I do not recommend is holding this ball so high in his approach. So our brother here is quite tall, right? As you can see, one of the tallest boys among everyone here, right? And if he's so tall, he already has really long arms. So when he's placing his ball so high up in his stance, when he lets the ball swing down, it ends up in a very long, prolonged, and slow swing. So you can see his high backswing here. Yep, it reaches to the peak, right? His backswing reaches as high as this. So his backswing actually takes a lot of time to complete. That's because when he started the ball placement, he was holding it really high. So generally, the higher you hold your ball during the stance, the longer your swing will be, because your swing takes a longer path, right? If you were to draw it out. So your swing, you start it high. For example, you start it high, it goes doop, high, it ends up high, and then it comes down. It takes a long time to come down again, right? So that is what's happening on with his swing, which is takes a long time, and because of that, you can see that his feet actually has to slow down to accommodate his slow arm swing. Because his arm swing is not really slow, but it's taking too much time. So in order to accommodate it, his footwork actually slows down. Yep, you can see there's a slight pause in between the last two steps, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can see that 4, 5, he actually slows down. 2, 3, yep. So you can see here, this 3, 4, 5, yep, he has a little bit of a pause between there. So his footwork actually slows down in order to accommodate his very high and very slow swing. So because it's high and it's slow, when he slows down his footwork, it also slows down the momentum. So overall, his ball speed isn't like very fast, right? He has decent ball speed, but really not that fast for such a brother that's really tall and has really long arms, right? You expect him to be able to generate more ball speed. And the reason he cannot do that is because his footwork is actually slowing down, mainly because his swing is taking far too long to complete. That's why his footwork is being slowed down by his swing. And because of that, since his footwork is slowed, he doesn't have as much momentum moving forward, and because of that, his ball speed suffers. So all in all, this is also another reason why high back swings are no longer in fashion in modern bowling, right? If you look at a lot of top professional bowlers nowadays, very few of them will utilize a high back swing. Nowadays, unlike the days of like Mike Fagan, which is like almost 15, 20 years ago. So that's quite a long time ago. High backswing was in vogue back then because people were doing it with early timing, and they needed high backswing in order to match the early ball placement timing. But nowadays, modern games, they usually start the ball placement at the end of the second step to cut down on the duration of the ball swing. So when we cut it down, our feet are able to go faster in order to match the shorter swing. And when our feet go faster, we can actually generate ball speed using our feet. But in this case, it still has a little bit of a traditional game, places the ball too high, swings the ball too high in the backswing, and because of that, his ball speed suffers. Okay, that's any other. So I don't know whether I've seen Oscar's game before, so let's take a look at Oscar, the bowling in science bowler here, two-hander. A little bit stiffer, so Oscar is a little bit of a stiffer bowler. That means his timing is not as smooth, but there are certain things that he does well. Let's take a look. Yep. So Oscar is also another tall brother, right? So a very tall kid, almost as tall as our guy here. I think even maybe just as tall as our guy in gray on the left. Really tall, and because of that, Oscar has long arms as well. So that helps Oscar to generate that ball speed. So what Oscar does well here is that as he goes into the release, he almost fully straightens his arm. Okay, here, see here? So his arm swing is a little bit bent on the upswing, but let's see if he straightens it on the downswing. Yep, he does. So as he goes into the downswing here, Oscar actually straightens his elbows, which actually makes his arm swing a little bit longer, and that helps him to generate ball speed. So he takes advantage of his long arms to help him to generate that ball speed. So that's something which is good. So he has decent ref rate with that, and also good ball speed. Certain things that he can improve on probably is his balance arm position. So you can see balance arm is being lazy. That means this is bad, right? So I'll like highlight in red. So balance arm is, oh no, let's highlight in red. So balance arm is too low. So ideally, you want your balance arm after, even as a two-hander, after releasing a ball, you want your balance arm to go straight and level, parallel to the floor in order to provide balance. Because you need that balance, because especially for two-handers, right? We do a lot of our release. That means we try and lift up a lot on the ball on release because we are going, usually we cup our hands underneath the ball. And in order to clear that, we need to flick the ball in order to clear the ball fast enough for the ball to have a clean release. So since there's so much going on during the release portion, we need to have very good balance in order to balance our body during the finishing position to accommodate that violent release, so to say. So there's a lot going on the right side of the body, and all the more important for the two-hander to have very good balance arm position and very good trailing leg position. So I cannot really see clearly, but it seems like Oscar doesn't have a very good knee bend because he pops up on release. You can see him bobbing up his head. He pops out his head trying to apply lift on the ball during release. And because of that, he doesn't get low enough. So his aiming is a consequence. His aiming might not be that good because when you pop up, you're looking at the target from here instead of originally when you were going into your fourth and fifth steps. When you're going into your power step, the body is a bit lower, so he should be looking at his target from a lower point originally during the fourth and fifth step. But as he released the ball, when he pops up his upper body, his sight lines actually have changed. So how he aims, how he looks at the target will have changed as well, and that leads to inconsistency. At the same time, obviously, trailing leg, I think angle is not bad. So I think I couldn't see it clearly. I think it's well extended to the left. So that's good. But the bobbing up of his upper body is not recommended, right? Yep, and you can see here that his front leg here doesn't have a lot of knee bend. He's almost standing straight. So not enough knee bend on the front leg. So, and also the lack of having that balance arm being well positioned means that actually Oscar cannot generate as much ref rate as he possibly can. That means he couldn't really accelerate the ball as much on the release, because if Oscar tries to do a little bit more violent release, right, a quicker release and higher and a quicker follow through, he would actually lose his balance because he doesn't have enough knee bend and he doesn't have a well-established balance arm so his overall body balance is not as good. So since your body balance is not as good, if he tries to do a little bit more at the release point here, he tries to like accelerate the ball upwards, he will actually find that he will lose his balance and he'll most likely fall to the right side. So he would have a poor finishing position and lose his balance to the right of him. Okay, so that's Oscar. So a sports school bowler here, pretty good. I can see that, let's just take a short look. We have this sports school bowler here on the right. I don't know his name, but that's pretty good. So decently, not overly high. Backswing. Backswing is still considered high because it's higher than his head. But he has, what I would say, excessive body lean forward. Because usually for a one-hander, you actually do not want to lean that far forward. Because when you lean too far forward, your weight is actually going into the lane. And then this affects the amount of leverage you can put on the ball. Because for one-hander, when you want to lift on the ball, right, your upper body has to be in a stable position. So normally about 30 to 45 degrees of forward body tilt is sufficient. And you need to be in a more higher position in order to apply lift using that one-handed technique. For two-handers, usually two-handers have to lean forward because of how they swing their ball with both hands. Because two-handers swing the ball with both hands, the left hand is involved in the swing, so they have to lean forward in order to accommodate the left hand going behind the body. So one-handers typically doesn't need to lean so far forward, but other than that, you can see that his game is pretty good. So on release, very disciplined, balanced, very balanced arm swing, very level balance arm, right? So that's good. His trailing feet is positioned around here, so he kicks up because he's trying to balance the amount of motion that he's doing on the right side of his body. And if you look at him after he releases, I can't really see the knee bend, but it looks like he has a decent knee bend because he's also quite a tall kid. I think he has a decent knee bend here. Trailing leg position is good, very good angle, way to the left side of his body. Overall, really good balance. So, a good bowler there, good physical. 10, and get strike. Okay. So probably won't be going through each and every bowler. Maybe I'll focusing a little bit more on the two-handers if I can see them, because I'm more interested in the two-handed game, because there's not a lot of knowledge going on in two-handed game. Yes, we have a two-handed. Nice. Okay, so let's take a look at our two-hander from the NSR Bio Bowling Academy here, right? So first and foremost, what I think that can be better is that his hips could open up a little bit more, right? So hips, okay, decently open, but maybe could open up a little bit more. But what helps him is that his body shape is actually quite ideal for bowling, because you can see that our bowler here from Bio Academy is very slim, right? He's a very slim physique, and his hips are very slim as well. So naturally, he has a lot more space on the right side of his body to swing his ball using even though if he's bowling one-handed or two-handed, regardless, he has that advantage there, right? He doesn't need to open his hips as much because he doesn't have wide hips. So that's a biological advantage that he has. So that's why it's his timing. Yep. So completes the second step before he moves the ball. That's nice. So you can see that he completes second step and then he starts his ball movement. So that is actually good. What is not good is that I'm seeing this hip drift, right? So the hip drift is very common among two-handers that don't open up their hips wide enough during the stance. Because like I mentioned earlier, I feel like his hips are a little bit too square to the target. And the consequence of that is that when his ball comes down into the downswing, right? And his ball comes down here, he has his body has the feeling that the ball is going to hit his right hip. And instinctively, his body twists his right hip over. And the consequence of that, because when you twist your right hip over, the upper body would go this way as well. Because since you are tilting your body towards this side, right? A sudden movement to tilt your body towards this side. So he shifts his upper body towards this way. So this is bad because, like one of my previous videos, his aiming point actually suffers as a consequence. So let's see, when he is standing here, right? His aiming point should be somewhere around here. So I assume that he's aiming at around the break point at around 10 to 12 board. So it should be around there. So this is, maybe I can draw it in blue, right? This is his original intended ball path. And he's looking at the line from his, obviously he's looking at it from using his right eye while he's standing in the stance. But as he shifts, so look at what happens to his aiming line, target line when he shifts there. Oh, to his credit, actually he does pretty good. His head stays pretty stable. So let's see, his target line now is about this way because he positions his head a little bit, he positions his head a little bit to the right, and now his aiming line is this way, right? He's looking at it starting from this way. So it's still not too bad. He actually has rather good stable upper body movement, even though his upper body shifts to the right. He is still somewhat in line with his target line, so he should be a rather consistent bowler. So that's good. So on release, he misses the ball. This target a little bit to the left. I think this ball goes high. Yeah, it does. So misses the target a little bit to the left. Ball goes high. So what's good about his game here? Good balance arm. Very good balance arm. Nice trailing leg flex. So his trailing leg is nice and flexed. And excellent knee bend. So for a very tall boy, he has really good knee bend, goes low. What might be a little bit excessive is his body tilt to the right, right? So you can see here the upper body tilt is a bit overly excessive to the right. It's about almost 60 degrees to the right, where usually about 40 to 50 degrees tilt to the right is actually more than enough. So all we need to do is just to create, we need this upper body tilt to the right in order to create space here for our ball to come down into the downswing. So something I don't like about him is his direction of his ball placement as well. So if you can take a look here, ball placement is the moment where you set the ball into motion into the start of the swing. So the direction of his ball placement actually is this way. You can see based on his elbow here, right? He's actually placing his ball towards this direction based on the angle of his elbow. So his intended target line is actually from here to here. But yet, as you can see on the red arrow here, he's actually placing the ball way to the right. So the direction of his ball placement is not ideal. And he has to redirect his arm swing later on in his, I think in his downswing. So he redirects it in his downswing to try and get it into the target line. So he redirects it here. And because of that redirection, normally it makes it a bit harder for the bowler to stay consistent, to consistently hit his target. So some critiques about his game, but overall, what I like about the fact here, so why I feel like a bowler like this can improve is, first and foremost, he should try and open up his hips a little bit more here, so that he has a bit more space on the right side of his body to swing the ball. Then he doesn't need to do that awkward twisting motion of the hips, because when he twists his hips to the left here, yep, this awkward twisting motion, it doesn't really help the game, right? Because he has to twist his hips to the right, which also shifts his upper body to the left, and then it affects his consistency and accuracy. If we look at his swing on the backswing, it has a bent elbow, which is pretty typical. But let's see if he straightens his elbow on the downswing. Okay, not too bad. He straightens it on the downswing. I would prefer if he straightens the elbow a little bit earlier on the downswing. Typically, just like what we saw earlier with Peter Cauldron here, right? The two-hander with the light green shirt. Ideally, like what Peter Call does is that you should straighten, the two-hander should try and straighten their elbow towards the start of their downswing when their ball is starting to move down, because that's actually how Jason Belmonte is able to generate his ball speed. So if you look at a slow motion replay of Jason Belmonte, even though Jason starts his swing with his elbow bent as he goes into the backswing, as he goes into the downswing, Jason actually straightens his elbow, and because of that straight elbow and straight arm swing on the way down, he's able to generate a lot of power and ball speed with a relatively like slow feet. Like his footwork isn't extremely fast, not as fast as when he was younger, but now he doesn't need to use that fast footwork because he has a very nice, relaxed and straight downswing, and that straight downswing helps him to generate a lot of ball speed without relying on the speed of his feet. And that makes him a more consistent bowler, actually. More consistent and more precise. So our bowler here could actually straighten his downswing a little bit earlier, but he eventually does straighten it upon release. It's really quick, so I can't pause it in time, but he does straighten it upon release and is able to, I think, still generate a decent amount of reps. But like I said, because his ball placement direction is not ideal, he's placing the ball too far to the right during his ball placement, so he has to redirect his ball back to the left during release, and that makes him a bit inaccurate and inconsistent. So like here in this shot here, he actually misses his target slightly to the left. His intended target line should be somewhere around here. The breakpoint should be closer to like maybe the 10th board, but he actually misses it a little bit to the inside. So it goes to the 12th board and it goes high into the top. So it doesn't get the strike that he wants. Okay, let's just take a look at some of the bowlers. Okay, maybe for a change of pace, let's look at some of our ladies. So let's look at some of the under 18 girls. Hey, Team Singapore bowler there, Rachel Ong. Okay, let's see. I only managed to see a little bit of Rachel's game, but looks pretty good. So look at her Rachel's finishing position, right? So really good finishing position. Really strong, very stable. Nice balance arm. So trailing leg well extended to the right side of her body since she's a lefty. Excellent knee bend, right? Really good finishing position here. And look at the upper body tilt, almost exactly 45 degrees of upper body tilt to the left side of her body, which creates a lot of space here for her to release a shot. And she does it, and she has extremely good physical game, as you can see, able to generate a lot of power on release without using, without actually having a very violent follow through. She actually has a pretty smooth follow through. So follows through above her head here, follows through above her head, nice extended high follow through, and with that she can generate a lot of ball speed. Timing wise, let's take a look at Rachel's timing. So I believe she does delayed ball placement timing, right? Yep, so she places the ball at the end of her second step. So let's take a look again. So she goes 1 and 2. Yep, so she's not moving the ball yet. As you can see, her second step is now in the middle of the second step. So as she completes the second step, then she starts moving the ball, right? As she completes the second step, then she starts placing the ball here. So has delayed ball placement timing, and let's see if she has delayed timing upon release. Yep, just slightly, just barely. Yep, so slightly delayed timing upon release, almost traditional timing upon release. Her feet stops here, and the ball is entering the bottom of the swing, so it's entering into the release point. So slight delayed timing there, which helps her to generate more power upon release, and she does have a lot of ref rate, even though this is a spare ball, and she has a very smooth release. But you can see from the amount of rotations on the ball, still decent amount of ref rate there. So very good bowler, excellent physical game. Okay, and we can see an NSRCC bowler to the left here. Is that Janelle Chia, based on the, I think that's Janelle Chia here. Okay, so some things that can be improved, is that Janelle's shoulders a little bit too level. So it would help her, I think, if she lowers her right shoulder a little bit during the stance. And she also holds the ball a little bit high. Maybe that's because she has early ball placement timing. Let's take a look. Yep. So the reason she holds the ball high is because Janelle has what we call a slightly earlier ball placement timing. She places the ball at the beginning of the second step. So you can see here that her second step is actually just starting to move her second step, but she actually maybe I'm wrong. Okay, let's try again. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's analyze her timing again. Oh, actually, no. She actually has good ball placement timing. Yep. It was so smooth and quick that I didn't manage to notice it. So she actually goes in the midst of a second step, and then she places a ball. So not exactly early timing, but not exactly delayed timing as well. It's somewhere in between, but still pretty acceptable. So let's see if she has delayed timing upon release. About traditional timing upon release, actually. Because the moment her sliding feet stops on the foul line, which is actually here. So you can see here, the moment Janelle's feet stops on the foul line, the ball has actually reached the bottom part of a swing. So we call this traditional timing upon release. She doesn't manage to get that delayed timing, but so she can't generate as much power as someone with delayed timing upon release. But her finishing position is pretty good as well. So let's see. So something that I dislike is that she actually drops her upper body to the left as she releases. So that is, I think, a habit that's not that good, because it actually makes her lose leverage and lift on the ball. Because if we rewind a little bit, right, just right before she goes into that awkward finishing position. So you can see here right now, her upper body has a little bit of tilt here, which is a little bit tilt to the right, which is okay, right? This looks good. But once she releases, she goes into an extreme upper body tilt to the right. So she actually she actually drops her upper body from a higher position into a lower position upon release. And because of that, because when you're actually falling downwards, right, when your upper body is falling downwards, it will make it harder for you to apply lift on your bowling ball. So because of that, I believe she will suffer from lack of power on the shot. But other than that, what is good about Janelle's game is her fundamentals are excellent. So balance arm really straight. Look at that trailing leg position, well extended to the left. Excellent knee bend. The only downside of this is that she has an upper body that actually has that falls towards the right upon release. So that upper body tilt to the right is a little bit too extreme. So actually she could improve her game if she tries to keep her upper body more stable during that fourth power step into the slide. If she can keep her upper body more stable during that fourth power step into the slide, I believe she'll be a much better bowler. So because she drops her upper body here, then because of that, she is not able to get as much lift on the ball. Then if you look at her follow through, it is actually not as high as what we would ideally want to see. So her follow through only goes up to her face here. Follow through only goes up to her face, whereby ideally we would actually prefer for the hand to finish above the head upon follow through, because we would like to see the bowler try to extend their arms a little bit further out, and then finish higher, finish with their hand position with a more extended follow through is what I would like to say. More extended follow through, and then with a more extended follow through, the bowler should be able to generate a little bit of higher ball speed and breath rate upon release. So because of that, I think her ball speed, her breath rate is actually decent, but her ball speed actually is not as fast as it probably could be, because Janelle here is actually a pretty tall girl, and she has long arms as well. So with the tall girl and long arms, if she had a more relaxed swing, higher follow through, she could maybe generate a little bit more ball speed and power. But what that would help her there is that she could probably she could position her upper body a little bit lower. Like what that could help her to have higher ball speed here is probably lower the bowling shoulder a little bit more, create a little bit more space on the right side of her body. So that should free up her swing more, and it should free up her follow through more as well. She also has to work on keeping the upper body stable during that fourth step into the slide. But overall, pretty good fundamental game. Just that, as you can see, her ball speed isn't really that fast, and because of that, she probably missed her target a little bit to the left as well, because the lack of high follow through usually means that the ball speed actually suffers that. So obviously a lot of the Team Singapore bowlers here have excellent physical game. Maybe I could try and skip them if possible, because they are in Team Singapore because they have excellent physical game. Okay, so for Anna Sim, the bowler who just went, right? I would describe her game as pretty decent. So not gonna elaborate too much on fundamentals. Looks good, but she has what we would typically say slightly early upper body weight transfer, because as you can see, as she goes into her approach, she actually leans, a little bit earlier. Like even before she moves, right? She has a little bit of upper body forward lean. So her back isn't totally straight. So you can see her shoulders are hunched a little bit forward. So she has a little bit of upper body forward lean even during the stance. And as she goes in, as she goes into the release, right, you can see that her, actually not this part, but slightly earlier. So it's about the fourth step. Yep, this part. So you can see here as she goes into the height of her backswing into the fourth step, it results in her having excessive body weight transfer forward. So this is excessive for a one-hander because when you transfer your weight too far forward, you actually lose leverage and you lose the ability to lift up on the ball. So you actually lose ref rate and power on the ball with this kind of like excessive upper body forward tilt. And then, yep, while she finishes, she does a really good job in the finishing position. So all the fundamentals, good fundamentals are there. So still a pretty good bowler, but you can see that her ref rate actually is a bit on the lower end. Her ref rate is not as high and it results in a split. Partially also because of how she has the position of the fingers on the ball. So her fingers are positioned in the upper half of the ball as she goes into the release rather than in the middle portion of the ball, and this actually results in a lower ref rate because she couldn't lift up the ball as well. So various things that lead her to have a lower ref rate, but if she could actually remedy that, she would probably be a fantastic bowler because many of her fundamentals are very solid. Like her balance position, her trailing leg, her knee bend, her balance arm, upper body tilt to the right. A lot of it is good. Okay. So let's take a look at Team Singapore's Isabel Wee. Yep, all in all, many good aspects of good physical game. She's blocked by Coach Marcus Leong standing right behind her. But good aspects of physical game, lower bowling shoulder, higher non-bowling bowling shoulder, right? So she probably can't see here, but you can see her spine tilt here, a little bit of spine tilt to the right, which creates a little bit more space for her to swing the ball. And as she goes, so she has pretty smooth swing, and upon release, she actually is able to, because of that space that she creates here, she's able to do a little bit more on her release. So she actually has this flicking motion with her hands, and because of that flicking motion, she generates a very good amount of ref rate. So she is a pretty higher ref rate bowler. Ball speed is a little bit on the slower end, but still pretty decent for a female. Because females are generally shorter than their male counterparts, so and have shorter arms, so that is a disadvantage. That's a natural way. So with longer arms, usually you have a larger radius of motion, and you can generate more ball speed. So ladies with shorter arms and shorter height generally is only able to generate. Cannot generate as high as ball speed as men, which is very natural, but she as well here generates a very good amount of ref rate, right? Because of that motion she does. So a little bit of lack of discipline there, doesn't stay balanced at the foul line, but still a strike. So most of the Team Singapore bowlers that we see here, all of them have really excellent fundamentals, like I highlighted earlier. Nothing much to say, so let's take a look at some other lanes. Maybe you can take a look at the boys again. Okay, let's look at this one. Oh, there's some two-handers. That's nice. Okay, let's take a look, analyze some of the two-handers. Okay, so Dylan Teo here, the bowler that just unfortunately missed his sleeper spare. Pretty good fundamentals, but most of it is actually blocked by the coaches. So let's wait for a next shot. Nice. So is that Thaddeus? Okay. So Thaddeus from Strike Academy here, pretty good physical game as well. Let's take a look at how he starts his approach. So generally, yep, generally good stance here. A little bit of a lower bowling shoulder compared to the non-bowling shoulder. Hips are not as open, but generally for one-handers, not that big a deal. Opening the hips is more important for two-handers. Okay, so as you can see, when Thaddeus enters into the downswing, right, he actually tilts the upper body forward. So this is actually a good part of his physical game. Tilts the upper body forward and a little bit to the right. So tilts upper body forward plus a little bit to the right. So this helps to create more space on the right side of his body for his arm swing to come through. And also this upper body forward tilt, when he tilts the upper body forward, also helps him to generate more momentum and more ball speed. Yep, so arm swing doesn't go as high, like arm swing just goes to the top of the head, doesn't go excessively high. Yeah, so you can see that his arm swing is not excessively high. So that means his arm swing doesn't take too long of a time, which means he has a faster arm swing. You can match with his quick feet, and you can actually use that to generate more ball speed. So very good balance arm positioning here. So balance arm well extended out and forward in order to counterbalance the ball in the backswing. And as he goes into the finishing position, so you can see here, you can see that good upper body forward lean, not excessive, right? Not too much, about 45 degrees of upper body forward tilt. Actually 45 degrees is a little bit too much. Generally maybe about 40 degrees. 45 is a little bit too much, but still it is decent. And as you can see, he accelerates into the power step. Power step is the fourth step, and into the slide. And you can see that he could do a lot, right, on the release. So you have a delayed timing upon release. Let's take a look. So delayed ball placement timing, and yep, he has a delayed timing on release because his feet slides to a stop right here, and the ball is still not in the lowest part of the swing yet. So he still has a bit of time to actually generate, to do a complex release to generate more revs and power, because the ball still has to travel from here, to here to the lowest part of the swing. So his body is already in a stationary position while he is trying to crank up and generate power on the ball. And crank he does, right? Look at his release. So he twists his arms. He goes underneath the ball, if I'm not wrong. Let's take a look. Okay, so you can see the release here. So his fingers are positioned in the middle part of the ball. So at least it's not in the upper half of the ball, in the middle part of the ball, which means he can generate good power and good lift on the ball upon release. And he has this quick release, right? Quick follow through and that turning motion. So that helps to generate more revs as well. Because the faster your release, the more revs you can generate on your ball. Nice power and good strike there as well. So today is very good bowler. Great physical game, right? Good timing, good physical game. Is able to, so it's really good because when he has a delayed ball placement timing, the swing doesn't need to go too high. So when the swing doesn't go too high, he can match up with to speed up his feet. So both the feet as well, so the quick feet as well as the upper body forward lean helps him to generate that ball speed. And that delayed timing allows him to do a lot of the ball on release, and that's where he can get a lot of revolutions upon release. Okay, let's go to the live view. a lot of the one-handed bowlers here that we see from Agape all have pretty good physical games. So so Dylan Teo here is what we typically would say is a typical power bowler, right? So from Agape. Yep. So delayed ball placement timing. So he moves the ball at the beginning of his second step. No. No. Actually, yeah, he just moved the ball at the beginning. So a little bit of an early ball placement timing, actually. But he counters that by placing the ball a little bit higher. So he holds and places the ball a little bit higher to try and make the swing take more time to complete, right? To counter his early ball placement timing. Yep. And because of his early ball placement timing, in order to get delayed timing upon release, which is here, so he has delayed timing upon release. What he does to do that is to get the ball swinging higher. So he gets his ball swinging a lot higher in order to delay the timing of the downswing. So when he delays the timing of the downswing, he's able to get delayed timing upon release, because if we can get that perfect freeze frame where his feet slides to a stop. So his feet slides to a stop here. Yep, feet has stopped. Then his ball has still yet to reach the bottom of the swing, and that allows him to generate power on the ball. So I don't know whether we can get the exact moment where he releases. Nope. Difficult to get the exact moment of his release. Yeah. Pretty difficult to get the exact moment, but his fingers are more in the middle part of the ball. And because it's at least in the middle part of the ball, compared to the top half of the ball, he can actually get pretty good leverage on the ball and generates a lot of revs on and get a good lift on the ball to create a lot of rotations. So certain things that maybe is not ideal is because of the fact that he has to get that high backswing, right? Because he wants to get this high backswing to try and delay his timing. So in order to get the high backswing, he has to have excessive upper body forward lean. So this is very excessive. He has to lean his body extremely far forward in order to allow for the shoulder to swing the ball high up. Because if you were to not lean that far forward, right, it's almost impossible to get such a high backswing, because your shoulder joint would literally have to break. You have to break your shoulder joint in order for your swing to go higher than above your head. So in order for the swing to go above the head, the only way is to actually have the upper body lean forward excessively in order to get such a high backswing. So that's bad. And also certain disadvantages about his game is that because of this, he has to drift to the left. So he's actually walking to the left, I think, to create a little bit more space to swing his ball. Let's see here. He's walking to the left. Swing. Actually, his ball has already completed the backswing, right? So already completed the backswing, but he is actually walking to the left, I think, to create space for the downswing, right? Because he's swinging so high up, he wants to create space for the downswing to apply a lot of power, but he positions his hips excessively to the left. And then this affects his orientation and his slide as well, because it would actually create some amount of drift in his footwork, and that will affect his consistency. But extreme amounts of power, it generates a lot of rev rate and high ball speed upon release, so extremely powerful bowler. Okay, so we have Max Tan, two-hander here. So Max Tan seems like a powerful bowler with high ball speed, but there are several things about his game that leads him to be rather inconsistent. First and foremost is, even though Max is quite a slim bowler, right? So he has very slim build, tall and slim, and has very narrow hips. He doesn't really open his hips. His hips are very square to his target, right? Directly square facing his target. And because of this, he actually has to force his body to go into a leftward drift. So when he moves, you can see that he has to drift his body leftwards in order to accommodate space for his ball to come down into the swing. Yep, immediately he walks to the left, right? So let's reverse it a little bit. So you can see on the first even on the first step of his approach, he walks to the left in order to try and generate space for his downswing. So because he walks to the left, he has a lot of leftward drift. His targeting and aiming is hugely affected, right? It's highly affected because originally he was, let's reverse a little bit. So originally Max should be aiming at his target from this position, right? He's probably looking at his target here. He wants to send his ball probably around to board 10 or maybe board 8 at the break point, around there. But as he drifts to the left, let's see what happens to his target line. So you can see he walks 2 steps to the left, right? You can see he walks 2 steps to the left here. And right now, his target line is now looking at his target to here. Because he's still looking at his break point. So his target line has changed entirely, right? Target line changes entirely from the blue line to now the red line, just after walking the first 2 steps. And certain disadvantages about his game is that now, if you look at his ball placement, he places his ball to the gutter, right? He places his ball direction towards the gutter, and he has to redirect his downswing later to keep his ball on line to his target. So let's see what happens. Yep. So you can see on the downswing, he actually has to do a redirection. Downswing, he redirects his swing slightly towards here to try and keep it in line towards the target. So redirects the swing there. Certain good things about his finishing position. Okay, let's remove those target lines. So we know that his target line has shifted a lot. So good things about his finishing position is that balance arm is extremely straight, trailing leg well extended to the left, excellent knee bend, right? And he kicks out his trailing leg because he does a lot on release, right? He actually cranks the ball upon release. So cranks the ball to try and generate that ref rate. And also, if we were to look at his downswing, there's certain good aspects of his downswing that helps him to generate that ball speed. So goes into his downswing, and just like Peter Call, which we looked at earlier, he actually straightens his elbow on the downswing. Straightens the elbow on the downswing, makes the arm swing a little bit straighter and longer, and that is also part of the reason that how he can generate his high amount of ball speed. So has a lot of ball speed, lots of power and ref rate. His footwork, let's look at his timing and his footwork, right? Yep, so has delayed ball placement timing, right? Doesn't have early ball placement timing. He delays it so that the swing, he also places his ball really low into the swing. So let's see where he places the ball. So it's blocked by his upper body, but he holds his ball around here, right? On the lower part of his body, unlike most one-handers which has to hold a little bit on the higher up. So holds the ball a bit lower because he wants his arm swing to be compact and fast. So if he were to hold his ball too high for a two-hander, the arm swing would take too much time. So he wants his arm swing to be fast, that's why he holds it lower. So that's a good thing. That's a good aspect about his game. And if you look at his ball placement timing, he places the ball at the end of the second step. So walks 1, 2. So at the end of the second step, so he's going into his third step, and the second step, then he moves his ball. So has a delayed ball placement timing, which also helps to keep the arm swing a little bit shorter and faster. So which is how he can try and match up to his footwork, but he still has to accelerate his release downwards. Yep. So here he actually pushes down on the downswing. So he accelerates and pushes down on the downswing to try and get the swing in line with his fast feet. So he has very fast footwork. He goes like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? That 3, 4, 5 is really fast. The last 3 steps goes really fast, and he has to accelerate his swing downwards in order to keep up with in sync with his footwork. So because of the acceleration downwards, it also helps to generate that high ref rate, right? Because he actually has a faster release, faster acceleration. He has the acceleration upon release, and that acceleration actually helps him to generate that ref rate. But all in all, pretty decent physical game. Is not really good because the fact that he doesn't open up his hips upon the stance, and the fact that he has to drift to the left for the first 2 steps really impacts his accuracy and consistency. So disadvantages of his game are here. He doesn't open up his hips, right? Hips are too square. And then if you take a look again, he walks first 2 steps, he drifts a lot. He drifts a lot to the left. So these are huge consequences. It has huge consequences on his accuracy and consistency. So even though he can generate a lot of ball speed, a lot of power, a lot of ref rate, the fact that he cannot be consistent and accurate would really means that he has that means his potential to achieve high scores, right, in tournaments will be really capped. Yep. So because of a lot of things that he's doing on the release, he isn't able to keep his balance on finishing as well. Because he has to do so much, he accelerates his arms downwards, so he's doing so much upon release. You can see that he instantly loses balance. He loses balance to the right, and he falls off position. He falls off balance during his finishing position towards the right. So that also affects his consistency and accuracy. So actually Max has a lot of potential, but certain aspect of his physical game needs to fix, right? He looks pretty confused as well. Right? Constantly wondering why can't he strike, because he's not consistent. He's not consistently hitting the line that he should be hitting. And when you're bowling in tough tournaments like this, where you have a spot oiling, very competitive oiling, you have very little room for error. So if you're not consistent, if you're not hitting your intended target line in the exact path, in the arrows and the breakpoint, you're not going to get the result that you want. Oh, almost with his release as well. You can see that it's very inconsistent, right? His release is also inconsistent as well. So, yep, it really affects his game. So that drift to the right, that lack of opening up on the hips really affects his game a lot. Okay, so most of the guys have finished up here. Okay. Yep, you can take a look at the ladies here. So I don't know whether they have totally finished bowling their masters, or whether it's like a first block, second block thingy. I'm not entirely sure about the rules. Pretty decent physical game there, but from, I think their bowler is it Nicole Tan, right? Let's take a look at Nicole Tan. Yep, pretty decent game. So what I would prefer to see is having Nicole having a lower right shoulder upon the stance, but she opens up during about the second to third step, right? So she has this upper body, as the upper body leans forward, it also leans to the right as well, which helps to create space for her downswing. So her downswing looks good, but her balance arm is a little bit undisciplined. So balance arm is straight, but not entirely level as it should be here, right? So straight, but not entirely level. But she still gets decent balance, so certain good things about her footwork and her finishing position. Excellent knee bend. Trailing leg well extended to the right? That's good. So she has good balance. And overall, overall still pretty decent bowler, but her balance arm could be better disciplined, right? So she could do have a little more work there. Okay, so we're looking at Hazel. Hazel Tan is, I've seen her bowl quite a few times. I believe she is from sports school. Really good bowler. So at physical game. So, has that pop up upon release? Not too good. So let's take a look at her game here. So she does a little bit of practice swing. Does a little bit of practice swing in her preparation. That means her step. So she's trying to, so you see some bowlers do this because they're trying to keep their swing in line, right? So that means they usually have an issue with keeping their swing in line. So they're doing a little bit of practice swing to try and loosen up their bowling arm, as well as to make sure that their swing is going to go in line with their target. So this is why some bowlers do this. So certain good things about her physical game: shoulder position is good. Right, lower bowling shoulder compared to the non-bowling shoulder because she's a lefty, and she has this upper body lean to the left, right? So helps to create space for her swing to come through later. What else? Okay, so delayed ball placement timing. Notices she places the ball at the end of the second step. So 1, 2, and then she places right. So she completes the second step before she places the ball into the swing. So delayed ball placement timing, which should probably result in a delayed timing upon release. So let's take a look. Which, yes, delayed timing upon release. So goes into the slide here. Yep. So I believe her feet should have stopped moving around here, and the ball is still going into the downswing. So she still has time to apply lift and revolutions on the ball, right? So this is what a delayed timing upon release would help you to do. So generally this timing gives a little bit, lets the bowler generate a little bit more revs on the ball. And I think she generates quite a significant amount of revs. What I dislike is that she pops up with her upper body upon release. You can see here. So instantly after releasing, she actually pops up. Maybe it could be because she saw that she missed her target, right? Maybe. Because she was actually in a good position when upon releasing the ball, but directly after release, she actually loses discipline and she pops up her upper body. So that's something that's not that good. But she misses to the left. So maybe she saw that she missed the target to the left and she was disappointed and instantly stood up. Right, instantly popped up on the approach during the finishing position. So it's actually a bad habit, right? So Hazel has this bad habit of popping her upper body up during release. So it's actually a bad habit because in the short run, maybe in 1 or 2 shots, you might not see a difference. But if you're comparing with a bowler who actually stays stable, keeps their upper body stable upon the finishing position, if you compare 100 over shots, the bowler who is more stable, who has a more stable upper body during release, would generally be more consistent, more accurate than a bowler who moves their upper body upwards. Why is that so? Because your target line has changed. Because originally when you were down here, right, you're looking at your target from here to here. But once she pops up with her upper body, right, she pops up here upon release. Now her target line has changed from here to here. Oh, okay, let me draw that again. Okay, so as she pops up, her target line is she's now looking at a target line from this angle instead of the earlier angle that I drew in blue. So her sight lines has changed. That means she's essentially aiming at a moving target instead of a stationary target. So it's going to be a lot harder to hit a moving target as compared to a stationary one. So so the bowler's accuracy and consistency actually drops if there's this upward hopping motion with their upper body upon release. So that's actually a bad habit. So other than that, extremely good physical game, good timing, generates good power. Good timing which allows her to generate good revolutions and power upon release. But she's not scoring that well and she's probably frustrated, right? If you look at Hazel's scores. So part of it is probably due to her bad habit of popping her upper body, because that really adds to the inconsistency there. So it's been about an hour plus and I'm getting tired as well. So that will be all, right? So the Masters is still ongoing, and you can check out the step ladder if you are just watching this. You can try and look at the VODs, because if you're watching this as a video, right, that means the live telecast is ended. And maybe you can check out the step ladder as well to try and support the kids. So I believe a lot of them, like I mentioned, many of them have great physical game because this is the Masters. So only the top scorers from both the under 18 boys and under 18 girls have made it here. And hope you keep supporting them. And we shall probably see you guys next time.